Welcome to Your Story, brought to you today by the Public Speakers Association. I'm so excited to introduce to you the amazing Miss Galit Ventura Rozen. Hey,
Hi.
Galit.
Hi, Tanya. You're so great. Sometimes I think you need to be an announcer. Seriously. Thanks for having me today so I can share my story with you guys. So I wanted to share a little bit. Tanya said just jump in, so I'm jumping in. It's so interesting to me because I think that when I look back at my story, I myself sometimes don't believe it. Many of you may or may not know that today I'm a professional speaker and a business mentor. And what's so most interesting to me about my story is that when I was a child, I was quite awkward. And I almost want to show you a picture. I have this picture when I was in the 7th grade. I had really short hair that was trying to grow out. I had braces. I was most definitely in the Madonna stage. And I recall at that time just feeling so out of place and always wanting to belong. And it wasn't just the way that I looked, but it was also because at that time I still hadn't literally had a voice. And it's such an interesting story, and I really probably didn't even know it was part of my journey until just the last few years when I started speaking on stage and wanting to impact as many people as I can in a positive way. So the story goes like this. When I was 7 years old, I woke up one morning and I called out for my mom. Just like anybody else that was 7, something just didn't feel right. When I called out for my mom, the only thing that came out was a whisper, not the voice that you hear today. So I like to share with people that the voice that I have today is not actually the voice that I was born with. It was the voice that chose me. Well, what happened next? It was a stream of doctors and trying to figure out what was going on. And at the end of the day, after multiple visits to the doctor and knowing that it just wasn't a common cold, I spoke for the next 5 years pretty much in what I call my chest. So if you could imagine a whisper. So I spoke something like this. Hi, my name is Galit. And unfortunately, when I was nervous, which was pretty much all the time when I needed to speak or got called on in school, it continued to get worse. So the whisper now started cracking. I went to speech therapy for many years, but during that time, it was pretty much my most awkward years, you could say, from the age of 7 till I was 13. I probably most memorable is the first day of school every year. You walk into class, you sit down, it's a new teacher, everyone is anxious and feeling uncomfortable to begin with. And the teacher would call out my name and roll call, and having such a different name, which I absolutely love today and did not then, was mispronounced wrong. So when the teacher called out the name Galit, which was never pronounced like that, it was pronounced Galit, Gillette, Galit, and anything in between, the next step was looking for who matched that name and wanting the student, which was me, to correct the teacher because that's what she was asking for. Well, at that time, I didn't have a voice, literally and figuratively. The fear of speaking up and knowing that everyone on the first day of school was going to, at that age, you think, judge you. And from that point on, that's who you are going to be for the rest of the school year. This girl that had an odd name and no voice. It's interesting to me because now I look back and I do so much work with my clients on mindset in business and in speaking that I now recognize that I'm so thankful that those experiences actually molded me into who I am today. But during that time, if any of you have ever experienced something that was just a little heartache, that you just felt like you didn't belong, that you were just done with being different. It's interesting to me because now I recognize that it turned me into the unique person I am today and that I'm not interested in being put in any mold whatsoever. But during that time, kids are mean and they don't care. And you have to deal with the name calling and you have to deal with people laughing at you when you get up even in high school. So basically what happened next was around the age of 13, while I was in speech therapy, and you could imagine speech therapy was like almost a singing coach trying to find the right octave for my new voice. I remember that day so clearly because the speech therapist said to me, stop, right when I was at an octave. And I said, what? She goes, stop, that's your voice. That may not be the voice you had, but it will do. And that day, my voice, in a sense, came out of my chest, and this is what I have. And I'm so thankful for this voice, because many people that have nodules on their vocal cords, which I have one on one of my vocal cords, may have to have surgery or may never have a voice. So basically what happens with me is I have my vocal cords with a bump. And every time I speak, that bump is in the way. So this is what we got, was this whisper. Once we found my voice, I now was in one of the most awkward ages as possible for a girl at the age of 13. For the next few years, I was trying to get comfortable with this voice, but again, when I'd get in front of class to give my history presentation, I would always come up with excuses. And what I would say was, oh, I'm sorry, I have a cold today. And then one of the not nice kids from the sitting down in class would say, well, that's your normal voice. At that point, I want to believe that as I got older and people got to know who I am, and I had that support system and those good friends and that great family, I learned to recognize that my voice just made me who I am. When I was 16, I went back to the throat doctor. Why? Because I was told at 16 my voice would stop changing and I would be old enough to get surgery to remove the nodule off my vocal cord. That day I remember just as clearly as the day that I woke up without a voice. That day my mom was sitting next to me, and my mom never treated me like I was different. And the doctor said, would you like the surgery? And my mom looked at me and said, Galit, would you like the surgery? And I said, no. And the doctor was shocked. And I said, do I have to worry about any health problems because I have this nodule on my vocal cord? He said, no. I said, then this is who I am, and this is how people know me. And I have grown into my voice, and I love who I have become. And I'm not interested. What would have happened that day if I would have said yes? Well, I would have had the nodule removed in surgery. Who knows what would have happened, right? We don't know, but it was not a fear-based decision. Also, I would have to go back to speech therapy to find a new voice, because now the voice that I had from my vocal cords hitting with the nodule would change. Well, think about it. I just spent the better of 9 years embracing this voice that I have, this voice that I found after having a whisper for so many years, and now I'm not even going to sound like who I am. Well, why would I want to do that? Instead, I remember that day, and I remember wanting more than anything to know that I made it through something that, in a sense, happened to me that I had no control over, and I chose to embrace it. The best part of this story probably is that today, as I sit here, I would have never imagined in my entire world that I would be on stage, not just sharing my story, because I really don't share my story quite often. It's really about my areas of expertise, being an entrepreneur for over 20 years, and knowing more than anything that when people look at me sometimes on stage, this pretty girl with blonde hair that is very articulate in the way that she speaks, very confident, very energized. Yes, that's who I am. I wasn't always that way. Instead, what I like to share is, yes, my areas of expertise, but I also like to share that we all have a choice. We all have a choice in the way that we allow our circumstances and our experience to impact our lives. Maybe my experience is not that big in the world of things that could happen to someone, and yes, I'm okay with that, but I know that that experience could have been completely different, and I could have chosen to take a different path. I never wanted to be a professional speaker. I never thought about it. I always knew I wanted to work for myself. I always knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I have been for over 22 years. I always knew I wanted to help others. Probably one of the reasons I went back to school and got my master's degree in therapy and thought I was going to be a therapist. And I think one of my favorite things in the world today to do is to show people how they can do what they love every single day, that the only obstacle in their way is them, and that if they decide instead to see those obstacles as in their way and see them as part of the way, that I can teach them all day long the tools to be a successful professional speaker, get paid, promote their business, be a successful entrepreneur. But more than anything, they've got to believe here So yes, I'm going to combine in my workshops and in my coaching the mindset with the tools, because I could teach you how to be successful, but if your mind doesn't match the success that you desire, at the end of the day, you won't be successful. So I appreciate you listening to my story. Thank you, Tanya, for letting me share my story. And more than anything, what I want to share with you is that if you're called to be more, to do more in your life, if it's from the stage or if it's from your business, make sure you reach out to me. I love more than anything in the world to show people how to be entrepreneurs and professional speakers. And you can reach me at my website at GalitVenturaRozen.com, or you can find me on all social media under the same name.